Um, I hereby call to order the meeting of the Chesapeake Beach Ethics Commission on February 28th, 2022 at 1 p.m. First order of business is a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the
to
flag
the
pledge
flag
allegiance
of the
of the
United
United States
of America
and
and
to the republic
public
for
for
which
where
it
it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and
and
justice for
justice
all.
for all.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda? Yes. I'm going to have add two things under D, additional matters for discussion. But we can get to that when we get to it. Anyone else have anything they want to add or delete?
I have, this is Peter. I have two things here. We received a complaint, anonymous at first, but I see that meanwhile the complainant has been identified, and presumably we would want to address that. So far,
Yes.
all
Why
I've
don't we
seen
do that? I'll do that under D.
under D. Okay.
And if you want to, because of the
Um,
nature of what we have so far, we want to avoid as much as possible any details.
okay, and understood.
And the other thing would be transition from the current administration to the next.
Yes, and I have one question. We had a request from Councilwoman Bodine involving the dragon boat races. My impression is that this matter is resolved and off the agenda. Is that everybody's understand?
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay, so it's not an agenda item.
No. And
No.
right, as far as I know. Okay, so the agenda is approved with the understanding that under D, we'll deal with the apparent complaint and with any questions about transition. All right, the next item on the agenda is approval of the February 2nd minutes. Does anyone have any corrections or improvements?
No.
No.
Those, well, that being the case, the minutes are approved. All right, next item is discuss whether the ordinance should be amended regarding the employment of children of town officials. I circulated a memo a couple of days ago saying that there are two ways that this could be addressed. One is to amend the current 25-23, which currently bars covered people, that is officials, elected or non, from being employed by anyone who has a contract with the town. In fact, it's come up in the past. And that's required by the state law for, at least for elected officials. That could be amended to say two things. One is to say, instead of a covered person may not be employed, it would say, in general, neither a covered person nor a close relative of the covered person may be employed. And yeah, that'd be in two places. And clarify that it's an entity that, like the water park, has a budget subject to town approval. The other alternative is to address it under participation and bar officials from participating in matters affecting, in this case, the water park, if their kids are employed by it. Does anyone support making it a complete employment bar? That you can't be, let's say, an elected official if your kid gets a summer job at the water park. Does anyone want to even seriously consider that?
I do not.
So Phil, are you saying just at the water park or at any town entity like the wastewater treatment plant or the
No.
water?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So the way it's drafted, it would cover the wastewater treatment plant. This particular draft, or that an entity that, like the water park, has a budget subject to town approval. And actually, that the whole thing, that would mean anyone couldn't work, a kid. It covers working for the town itself, or the water park, or the wastewater treatment center.
So right now, is it just the water park that's employing town official children? I just don't know.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's come to our attention. And clearly the state law does not require a bar of elected officials having family members working for the town. And that's not been, well, I mean, which is an option that we could adopt, but this just, came up, this all came up looking at the last disclosures.
Right.
Fact is, we do know that for a couple of years at least one child of an elected official has had summer employment. I'm not sure which way I'll go even on the participation, but I don't see this as a situation where, if your kid gets hired, you will have to resign from town council.
No. I don't think that's what our intent is here at all.
Okay, so we'll bypass that option, and the other option would be, if you have it in front of you, we have 25-15-17 and -20. 15 is decisions and other actions by covered people shall be taken in the sole interest of the town. 17 is a covered person is disqualified from participating in any matter, including attempting to influence the decision in that matter, which involves a conflict of interest. And 20 starts out specific conflicts, parties. A covered person may not participate in any matter in which any of the following is a party. And the first one is an entity for which the covered person, or if known by the covered person, a close relative, is an officer, director, trustee, partner, or employee. These three taken together arguably say that if I'm an elected official and my kid gets hired by the water park, I am not allowed to participate in matters affecting the water park. I say arguably, I don't think we should have an ordinance that has things that are just arguable. I think it should be clear. So if suggested, if we want to clearly bar participation, we simply amend the definition of entity so that it says, right now it says a person, a company, or a government or instrumentality of government. And I would add, including the town itself and activities like the water park, whose budget is controlled by the town. Right now, when it says entity means a government or instrumentality of government, does that mean the town of Chesapeake Beach, or just mean other governments?
That's Phil, I think that's a issue of interpretation. I would
Mhm.
also caution you, if you make it clear that it is the town, then you may have a problem up on 25-20A, which where a covered person may not participate in any matter in which any of the following is a party. An entity, which would be the town, for which the covered person is an officer, and arguably mayor or council person is an officer of the town.
Which section is
So
that,
Be careful here.
Fred?
That's 25-20, capital A,
Okay,
on
yeah,
the top of the page.
yeah, yep. Well, that's what we're talking about. If we change the definition of entity, that would radically or substantially increase the coverage of 2520-A. That would be the point.
The point I'm making, Phil, is that arguably a person, a council member, a mayor would not be able to participate, period. And that is not what's intended here.
I see. So that would be a crazy thing.
Yes. It would be an absurd result, which the
Yeah.
court would abhor.
Yeah, no, and we don't want to do it. I mean, it's just silly. So to take care of that problem right now, in the draft I sent out, cross out including the town itself. Put a comma after government and add the word and. No, the word and in there. So it would say entity, a person, a company, or a government or instrumentality of government, and activities like the water park budget is controlled by the town. You know what? Let's talk about the substance, and if there's a decision today that we want to bar that participation, then put on the agenda of the next meeting how to word it. Is that all right? Hearing no objection, that's what we're going to do.
Well, I guess I'm kind of just sitting here thinking, are we making this a lot more difficult than it has to be? Should we just say the kids can't be employed at the water park, and that way we get out of this Pandora's box of participation? I mean, we talked about the whole, appearance of favoritism, and we even had the mayor admit, yes, there's pressure on the manager to hire the kids and maybe even promote them and give them better positions.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
This is Peter. I'm very impressed by what Ingrid just said. We have been wrestling with this for a long time now, and maybe there's a totally different solution. I cannot find the provision of the ordinance right now, but it says something that things may be permitted by an opinion or don't have the exact words, basically a policy statement by this commission. And can we not say, since if we want to deal only with a water park, and we are aware of or semi-aware of only one situation where this even came up, that somebody's kid or some officials, some covered person's child had a job there. So is that worth, I suppose by definition, it is worth, our effort is worth it because we've spent it. But can we not, and I volunteer to locate this in the ordinance, I can't do it so quickly, simply say that we consider it a conflict of interest if the child of a covered official who is involved in making decisions with respect to the water park, he has to recuse himself and cannot participate in that decision. And I think the relevant decision would not be voting for the budget of the water park. That's a big global affair within which having a kid working there or not, pales to near insignificance. And we just make it known that the Ethics Commission would frown on somebody who gets some covered official who gets involved in the hiring decisions. And by the way, it's open now, according to the town website, and they stand to hire quite a large number of people, not only lifeguards, but also ticket takers and food vendors and I guess ground sweepers, quite a few people.
All right, so we have two
So-
suggestions. One is we have the town have a bar against the water park employing children of elected officials, period. The other that Peter's just been discussing is to issue an opinion that says we think it would be a conflict of interest for an elected official whose child is employed by the water park to participate in, well, we'd have to, the
Anything.
suggestion is to make it an opinion, and we can't draft it in real time right now. So I think the question now is, do we want to follow Ingrid's suggestion of suggesting that the town law be established that bars the water park from employing children of elected officials? Or do we want to do it by somehow defining participation?
Phil, if I may briefly, and
Yeah.
that is that I think you all have the authority by opinion to determine that there will be a conflict. As we discussed, I think the most you can do with respect to a bar is to make a recommendation to the mayor and council that they enact either an ordinance or a policy prohibiting such employment. I don't think that the commission has the authority to make that type of hiring proclamation.
Oh, no, of course, yeah, no, this is all we can do on that, on Ingrid's idea, is all we can do is recommend to the town council. We can't change the ordinance. But Peter's idea is we wouldn't have to do that. We would just I guess we could issue an advisory opinion that we think participation at 2520 applies, or actually, I take that back. 2517, that we think it's a conflict of interest. If you're involved in making decisions affecting the water park, if your kid works there. But Peter, that's not exactly what you were saying. You were saying the elected officials should be able to participate in setting the budget. I think last year, you're saying the elected official can't be involved in the hiring decision, can't attempt to pressure the water park into hiring the kid. But there's no problem if the elected official keeps hands off and the water park just thinks this kid is the best qualified, then you go ahead and employ him. Is that right?
That you are saying it better than I could.
But don't we still have the problem then of that water park manager knowing that John is the son of council member Smith? So implicitly, there is pressure to hire John.
And the prohibition is that the public official cannot use the influence or prestige of that person's office for that person's gain or the gain of a relative.
Right. But if I'm the water park manager and I know Johnny here is so-and-so's son, am I not going to feel pressure to hire him over somebody else, potentially?
Yes,
Yes,
very, very possibly. I think there are two different issues, two different questions.
yes. Well, if I may respond to Ingrid's latest, we can easily put it to a test, can't we? Put the question to the council and see what the politicians, the real people who will make the decisions ultimately, what they say about it. And I can imagine some wonderfully entertaining scenarios of what we will hear.
Another question I have on Ingrid's approach is, it's a big question, is whether it fits within the ethics ordinance, or we're suggesting that some other section of the town laws be amended. Maybe I don't know if this is part of the laws that specifically talk about the water park, or there's employment laws. In all events, I'm going to take the chicken route out and suggest that this be considered at the next meeting of the Ethics Commission. And in the meantime, one or more members draft the language that would achieve, in this case, the goal that Ingrid is espousing, and if desired, a different language to achieve the goal that Peter was espousing. I guess I don't know what the rules of order here, but I suggest we table this for this meeting and refer it to the next meeting of the commission.
That sounds good.
Peter?
I agree with that.
All right.
And you, my friend, will be safely off to higher ground.
Exactly. All right. Yeah, so that means nobody on the council will hate me. Next item is any additional matters for discussion. First point is that we received a package, which is a full-page cover and a bunch of attachments. Um, on top or towards the top in bold, underlined capitals, confidential and not for public knowledge. I think we need to ask the person who submitted this whether he or she is objecting to our sharing
So
this
did we
with the,
Part C, the disclosure statements? Weren't we gonna talk about that?
I jumped, I'm sorry, you are absolutely right, that's postpone what I just said. I, disclosure statement for 2022, which would cover 2021. I circulated, I guess yesterday, a couple of draft changes in the current, or the one we used last year. One is on page 3, which is first the opening to Form A, give the option of the person signing and saying, I've attached a copy of my Form A submission covering 2020. I certify that the statements in it were true for 2021 as well.
I thought that was a good approach, Phil, because that's one that we've had a lot of problems with, and it's unlikely that it's gonna change much from year to year.
So that would be an option. What I have here isn't clear enough that it's an option.
Yeah.
But I think there's a consensus that we want to make that an option. The other changes are to put into Form D, either at the top or the bottom, a note in large letters. There are 4 questions on this form. Did you answer each of them?
I saw that too, because D was certainly one of our problem children as well as A.
Right? And same
Yep.
thing with Form F. There's 2 questions and, so ought to be some notification. Actually, it'd be better if these could be, those notes could be printed in red.
Yeah, that would be even better.
All right, now this is something that, the disclosures are due at the end of April, is that right?
Yeah,
So it seems to me that between now and then, the commission can take these ideas and, redo them, correctly. And for example,
I also had
those notes ought to be at the top, but I couldn't figure out how to edit.
sorry. I also had a couple of wordsmithing changes. I'll send in an email. I don't want to chew up.
Great.
It's, adding ofs and fors and things like that I
Yep.
saw. Just didn't get a chance to type the email. And then, of course, as you pointed out, we've got the whole 2020, 2021 numbering problem.
Yeah.
It's in some places and not others.
Phil, one item I noticed at the bottom of page 7,
Yeah.
says Appendix B is a list of entities.
Yeah.
I think elsewhere there's reference to Appendix B and Appendix C.
Okay, all right, so everyone circle that or highlight it. It's something that has to be checked anyhow. And that's also a sentence where the 2020 needs to be changed to 2021. Well, okay, I'll walk through this. So these are just ideas that the council will, well, between now and the next meeting, revised drafts will be circulated, and we hope the changes can be adopted by the Ethics Commission. Is there anything further on that?
No.
No, nothing more.
Hearing none. Thank you, Ingrid, for noticing that I skipped that. Okay, now we're back to this possible complaint. If the person is saying that it can't be shared with the persons being complained about, then I don't think we can treat it as complaint. So I think we need to send a note to the submitter asking to get that clarified. Now, our current rules say that, hold on a second. The complete complaint record will be made available to members of the public upon request, unless we grant a request to keep particular documents confidential, or the Maryland law precludes disclosure of a document. So I think, well, for now, all that we need to know is whether there's any objection to our forwarding this to the people who are named in it. And then a second thing to communicate to the submitter. At the top, it says regarding and names 4 people. In the substance of the text, it only refers to 2 of those. And we've got to know whether, well, the person needs to think through. If he or she wants to deal with those other 2 people, there's got to be some kind of allegation of something each of them had done or not done.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
are we not getting ahead of ourselves? As I look at the complaint, that one sheet memo that you received, I'm totally confused where the ethics violations might come in. It seems to me that this is an internal squabble of one of the homeowners associations that we have in town. And I'm not a member of, there is none where I live, but I hear that these things are notorious for feuds and other unpleasantness or entertainment, whichever way you want to look at it. So should we not look at it and say, where's the beef?
Okay.
Yes, we realize they have a big controversy there, and it seems to involve some money. But what does the where's the ethics violations?
Well, yeah, but the answer is what I think. First of all, I think the preliminary questions are can we look at it as if it's a complaint at all before getting into deciding that it doesn't make sufficient allegations.
Yeah.
But it does say it alleges that a person has threatened to have a house condemned, and it alleges this violates 2526. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. 25, let me get 16. Yeah, no, it must be, it says 2516. I thought it really meant 2526, which is using the prestige of office for some private purpose. But going back to Peter, maybe the letter should add or include, we don't understand how it's the facts alleged here would amount to a violation of each of the cited provisions of the ordinance. And so if you want to go forward with a complaint, explain with respect to each of the four people, or if you're only going to do two, both the people, each of them, how the alleged conduct amounts to a violation of 25-16 or 2526 or 2518 or 2519.
Bill, didn't we already ask for this? It feels like we've gone around this at least twice, haven't we, with this person?
No, this is the second time. I think with what she sent initially, didn't on its face say this is a complaint, and didn't mention the ethics ordinance. And I believe Sharon or Holly communicated, first of all, along the lines that Peter just articulated. This seems to be a homeowners association issue.
Right.
But if you want to involve the ethics commission, you have to file a complaint. And that's what I think this is, or an attempt at it. And I think it has to be, if we don't hear anything further, I would think the commission would dismiss it on the grounds that, Peter has articulated. But we certainly do not want, I think as a matter of policy, we do not want to make any suggestion that we're going to act cavalierly, or that we're focused on technicalities or anything of that sort. We need to carefully say we need this additional information in order to go forward. Is that all right?
Sure, that's
All right, why don't I circulate a draft today or tomorrow, and then use my judgment to the final draft that I'll send her, and that'll be, again, that'll go on the agenda of the next meeting, whether whatever I send has been responded to, and then you guys can decide whether it sufficiently states a claim. Is that all right?
Yes, it's okay with me. And Phil, I volunteer to take a closer look at the three sections of the ordinance that I mentioned in that letter, sort of as a backstop, perhaps, if you will accept it for your own thinking, so that we are on your somewhat firm ground if you want to say this complaint fails to state a cause of action in that matter.
Okay.
Phil, if I may.
Yep.
I think that your communication should say the commission has not yet determined to receive your complaint, and we will not do so until we have a response to the letter. And the reason I say that is because there is a 15-day response time of the commission once it receives a complaint. So bottom line, I don't think you've received it yet, because she's saying confidentially, you're saying, nope,
Yep.
and it's not clear who
Yeah.
you're complaining about. Once you clean those up, then we'll receive it
Brilliant, yes.
and
that
decide
will-
what to do.
That'll go into the draft. Thank you. All right. I have some kind of recollection that the current commission, we were all appointed effective March 16th, 2017.
That sounds right, Phil.
All right, assuming that's the case, my understanding is that our 3 appointments all expire at midnight on March 15th. And the 3 new appointments take effect at 12:01 a.m. on the 16th. And that there's no need for a transfer of anything. It just all happens. Is that everyone else's understanding?
That would certainly be my interpretation, Phil.
I think that as soon as the new commission is in office, somehow we should organize a meeting. I'll be one of the new members, as is Ingrid. And of course, we have to select a chairman.
Well, so what we can do, or what I'm suggesting then, on the agenda, is schedule the next regular meeting, and that it be, the 16th or 17th, or shortly after the new terms begin, and you put on the agenda, select a chair.
Yeah.
And just for the record, Greg Kernan has been monitoring us. Has been appointed effective, whatever date, the 16th. So I think the question for Ingrid, Peter, and Greg is when do you want to hold your first meeting of the new commission?
Don't everybody speak up at once, right?
Yeah. I do not have a calendar in front of me. This is all you guys.
Well, I have to find my calendar.
I will defer to Peter and Ingrid, or Ingrid and Peter.
Peter, you're probably maybe out and about, so I'm here chained at the desk doing tax returns, so I'm here.
Guys, I'm available the 16th and 17th, if you're looking at those 2 dates.
They work for me as well.
Phil, should we have you at that meeting so we can kind of wrap up a couple things? I was sort of
Yeah.
thinking that maybe the 15th, and that way we can have you on board because you're circulating things and we can kind of tie it up that way. What do you think?
Well, is the operative date? We go out of, my appointment ends on the 15th at midnight.
I think so.
All right, so I can show up at your meeting. For example, all right, another transition thing is I will be glad to forward either to Sharon or to the new chair or all 3 of you my computer file on it labeled Ethics Commission. You would have all, that's all my records. That doesn't have to be done at a meeting, but you know, that's the sort of thing that might come up is you want to have that. Um,
It sounds like at a minimum, Sharon should have that.
I don't think I have any email that didn't have Sharon as getting a copy. But if you want, I can go through, I ought to be, well, anyway, when we leave, you guys can ask me to go through my sent mail. If it's easy to do, I will do it quickly. But I don't think there's anything that I sent to anybody that I didn't give to Sharon as a copy, so. But I don't think I should, no, I think the next meeting should be the organizing meeting of the new commission. And I'll be glad to attend because in the meantime, have been circulating other stuff. Or I can be asked questions about what was on the agenda today. But I think you guys need to have an organizing meeting. And it should be the 16th or 17th or 18th.
Peter, how do those dates work for you?
I'm looking at my calendar. I'm on an airplane on the 15th, but it gets me back into town at a decent hour. So I can have a meeting any of those days, 16 or any day later. 17th is St. Patrick's Day. And that's when our ospreys are supposed to be back.
Yay!
Oh, good point. And yet, I think one can hold a Zoom meeting without interfering with the ospreys. Saying. I thought, Peter, you're going to say by 1 o'clock, everyone's going to be drunk. Well, up to you
Well,
guys.
17th then.
17th.
Greg?
Okay. It's a
I will,
Thursday.
I will remind everyone that Kernan is an Irish name, but go ahead. That's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to
And I do
forward you.
celebrate. Yes.
They're actually in 2016. Now, I don't know, some years ago, there was a song we could find on YouTube that said, "No one's as Irish as Barack Obama." Okay, 17th at 1 p.m.
All right.
And submit to Sharon ideas for the agenda. All right. Last item is comments by commissioners and members of the public. Anyone present have any comments?
No.
Hearing none. Those in favor of adjourning, indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you, everybody.
Bill, thanks for your leadership as chair of the commission.
Yes, thank you, Phil.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Good.
Well, not pleasure, but my satisfaction. All right. Bye.
Be well.
Right.
Aye.
Healthy and safe.
Aye.